Okay, we are now live. I always hate that little bit of a delay where it's like you click a button, you don't know where to look, where's it going? So, hi everybody. Super excited to be here and have Richard Moxley. Is that how I pronounce it properly?
You got it.
Perfect. I hate mispronouncing last names. Richard is with the Credit Game. He is a very valued partner that if you have errors on your credit, I have sent you off to. First, I'm going to do my disclosures. Little dogs in the home office. Sorry if they see a squirrel and bark, or Amazon comes to the door, it happens. And then any information that's discussed today is typically based along today's guidelines. So there could be changes down the road. So just as I say that, there's my disclaimers. Do you have any disclaimers for us, Richard?
Just that every situation is a little different. So if just because it worked for one person doesn't mean it's exact same for the other. There's a lot of in behind the scenes. So yeah, just always best to reach out and get your own specific questions answered if you have those. But I think we'll be able to give some good examples to help people understand better how the whole credit game works and how to move forward and maybe not look so negatively on the credit or so scared about what's going on there.
Perfect. Awesome. So why don't you just tell a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I love romantic walks along. No, I love romantic credit. That's pretty much what I do. So anything to do with helping consumers or people in the financial industry understand how the scoring system works. My history is mortgage financing, so I like to say I'm a has-been mortgage broker. And my first book came out in 2012, and once that came out, I just found more of a passion. I had spent so many years studying thousands of credit reports that it just was more of a passion project to focus on credit full time. But I definitely understand mortgages and what underwriters and lenders are looking for. And that gives me that unique experience and perspective to not just focus on, what I call theory, but also focus on real life scenarios, how to get best rates, best terms, or what I call winning the game. So that's pretty much my passion.
Perfect. And so one of the books that you talked about was this one right here, right?
Yes,
So
yeah, that's my most recent one. Yep.
Most recent.
Yep.
So I gotta give you a plug. Super easy to read, super easy to understand. It is also, I found it on I just got a Kindle.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you get the subscription, I think it is, I'm still learning about it. It was actually free for me to read on my Kindle, so that was pretty cool too. So, and if I'm gonna have Laurel read it because Laurel hasn't read it yet.
Okay.
Once Laurel reads it, anybody that's watching this, the first person to comment, I will send this book to you after Laurel reads it. So comment on the post, and once we're done reading, I'll mark your name down, and once Laurel reads it, then I'll send it off to you to read, because this
Does that include me? Should I
no, but I guess I should have gotten you to sign it first.
Yeah.
But it's super, it was really a really nice, easy read to be able to understand. So I always, before recommending things, I always like to read them myself. So definitely a recommendation. It's on, is it on Amazon as well?
Yeah, so it's pretty much everywhere. So audio and the electronic version, or the paperback, for those that still enjoy having something in their hands. So that, yeah, it's in all the versions and pretty much everywhere online. My first book was through the bookstores, and it was just more of a headache than anything. So yeah, anything, it's not in bookstores that I know of. It's in a few libraries across Canada, just random places. But as far as the way to get it is, Amazon or iTunes or any of those common locations. Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. That's super cool. Thanks for sending that to me, by the way.
You bet.
It was awesome. Okay, so let's get right into the meat and potatoes. What do you do?
Essentially get Canadians, my wife asks me this all the time. What do you do? I don't get it. My kids, he helps credit, but that's about the extent of it. So it's essentially any education or questions about credit. My passion is, there's not a lot of places you can go to get information or correct information about how credit works. And that's very sad, in my opinion. You call Equifax and TransUnion. Unfortunately, you got to wait on hold probably for at least an hour, and that's on a good day. And then you talk to someone who's overseas reading from a script that's never even seen a credit report, and that is sad. And that doesn't really help consumers, especially in Canada, understand how it all works or get your questions answered. When you go to the bank, they're seeing a different version of the credit report, and a lot of times they haven't even seen their own credit report, or have only worked there for a few days, and so that's unfortunate as well. And so my passion, my focus is really just how do we help Canadians understand the rules of the credit game so that they can play to win and have some fun along the way. Any game is not very fun when you don't know the rules and you're continually in the penalty box or getting beat up or losing points just for some random reason you didn't know. But if you know how it works, then it's a lot less stressful, and it affects so much of what we do. And so that's my focus there, is doing that. So how I educate Canadians is one-on-one reviews. We do courses to help. And then if there are errors or fraud on the credit report, then I have direct access to both Equifax and TransUnion. And we're a lot faster and accurate than if you're trying to do it yourself. The learning curve is not fun, unfortunately, and they don't make it a very easy process. And so that's where if you need some help or just want to get pointed in the right direction, then that's why we're there.
Yeah, so you, and I alluded to this at the top there, you have helped a variety of my clients who have had issues on their credit bureau where it's gone from we would have been declined with your traditional A lender to being approved. And at best rates, and less than 20% down, all the fun stuff, all the stuff that we want to see. And your timeline, when you in the description I put that save you time and frustration.
Right.
Just the amount of time as a consumer that you're going to be putting in to fix these errors, because you don't know. It's like me trying to be a mechanic.
Yeah.
No way, I'm not going to do it. I don't know anything about that. So when it comes to fixing the credit bureaus, there is a fee for your service, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. But it's such a minimal fee for the amount of time that it would take a consumer to fix the errors, that in my mind, it's worth it. And then if we're under the gun, so when you're working with me, we'll know we'll do a pre-approval and know of these barriers up front to get them fixed before you put in an offer. But we just had a deal come to us where, we had to save the day from another financing expert.
Good save.
Yeah, who didn't, it came to them live, meaning that they didn't do a pre-approval, so they weren't aware of the credit issue up front. But this person also didn't know to look for the errors on the bureau and was getting declines. And so from within less than a week of us sending you the client, we had it fixed on Equifax and TransUnion, I think, and it resulted in us being able to get the deal approved where it was previously declined with other lenders because of a silly little note put on and something that wasn't removed that should have been removed. It was complete error. And we're almost removing conditions. We got an extension to conditions just for a CYA because we're getting documents reviewed, right? But your service is really invaluable for those kinds of situations. And I have to thank you for having it. So
You
it's
bet. Yeah.
it's just
You know,
been a lifesaver. So what does the process look like for you? Like, so on your end, of course, I know what it looks like. I do the introduction, email introduction, client, please meet Richard. He's going to save your bureau.
Yeah.
So what does it look like on your end from there?
So I receive that email and then essentially reach out to the client and outline exactly how I can help, what the next steps are, and any kind of costs that are involved. My big focus is, one thing I really do miss being a broker is that I didn't have to charge any fees. The bank paid the fee. I wish Equifax and TransUnion would pick up the tab. That would make my life a lot easier because I hate asking people for money. But
or the companies that did put the error
messed it up. Yeah,
there, right? Yeah, that would be nice.
I would love to get paid that way because it would be a lot easier. But essentially, once I see a copy of the credit report, whether it comes through you or the client just has a copy of the report, the consumer version, whatever version of the report they have, it's very quick for me to take a look and see what's going on there. If I can help, it's a very easy way to say, you know what, it's just late payments. It's correct information. I can't do anything about it. Here's some things that you can do in the future, and kind of encourage them to take action on those. But if there are errors, then I outline exactly what the errors are. If they're on Equifax, TransUnion, what the next steps are and timeframes for the client. And then, I'm not big into heavy sales. It's essentially, here's what I can do for you. You can try it and do it yourself for sure. If they have time and they have, the patience to learn that new process, then by all means, they can definitely tackle or take at least the knowledge of what's wrong, and then take that back to Equifax and TransUnion if they'd like, and try and get that sorted out. But if they've tried and failed, or just don't want to deal with it, don't want to fix their own vehicle, then essentially that's where I'm there as a service to help them process that. So once they're ready to go, we just kind of get everything ready to go and send it off. So on our side, we have direct access to Equifax and TransUnion, which is completely different than the consumer. Consumer has to deal with overseas, and there's sometimes a language barrier issue unless you know Tagalog, or and some people have that. I guess it is a big hindrance because they can't quite understand what's going on, and there is that language barrier there. But essentially, the biggest challenge that consumers have is that you're going to get all sorts of different answers from Equifax and TransUnion depending on who you get on the phone. I know the Bankruptcy Act and the Insolvency Act and how mortgage lenders look or want it to look, what's can be done legally, what should be done, the timeframes for each province across Canada, and the ins and outs. This is all I do all day. And so I know what will get done, the chances of it getting done, or what should be essentially taken care of and how quickly. And then if it's not, then we have ways to escalate it. And then we also have other ways to go through not just Equifax and TransUnion, but directly to the lenders if we have to get things kind of to the next step. So
awesome. So yeah, so to clarify, just from what I've said, so you're not removing things that are supposed to be on the bureau.
That's correct. Yeah.
You're removing errors that are on there. Like if in this case there was a note on a specific trade line that shouldn't even have been on the bureau.
Yep.
So that's what was removed. So it's those true errors, not the
I don't want to pay my bills.
Exactly. Or if, say, you've got, there's a debt that's been paid in full, that you've got a letter from, or collection, and you've paid that collection off, but it's not updated, right? So those are types of things, as long as you've got the proof that it's an error, you can fix it.
And that's something where it can be a little confusing for consumers, because they'll jump online and they'll read a lot of things, and most of that's from the US. And unfortunately, the US system is much easier than it is in Canada. Their dispute process is completely different. And so you'll get a lot of these famous people that, or have tons of views, or you'll read comments, and they make it sound like, hey, don't pay your bills, and just dispute it because it's easy, it will just come off. Well, that's not how it works in Canada. And so that's one of the main challenges that I'm up against, is misinformation, is that consumers or financial professionals will hear something from the US and then think that that applies to Canada because we speak the same language. But when it comes, yeah, most of the time we speak the same language, but it is a completely different process for sure.
And isn't that like, I didn't even know that about the States, that's what their process is. For me, it was just like, yeah, pay your bills. So please, anybody listening this, if you're disputing something on your bureau, don't not pay the bill, pay it, and then fight afterwards, because it will haunt you on the next time you're looking for major credit. So,
and a lot of consumers say, but out of principle, I'm not going to pay it. And I appreciate that, but just know that your principal could cost you thousands of dollars in extra fees, or stop you from being able to own a home, which is not fair. And I agree with you, but that's essentially the system that we're at. So I do suggest that you fight it, but as you're saying there, it's very important. Pay it or settle it first, and then dispute it afterwards.
Yeah.
And go from there.
Like, even, I've seen it where a couple of $100 credit bureau, like a cell phone, has gone to collections and they're not paying it. Well, the lender now is going to be, they're going to hesitate and say, well, are these people out of principle? Are they going to want to pay their mortgage payment?
Yeah.
Right. It's unfortunate. And I'm the same way. I'm very much by principle, like, but unfortunately, the golden rule, those that have the gold make the rule, right?
Yeah.
So and I don't like it either, but have to play by the credit game, right?
Yeah, that's right. Whether you like the rules or agree with them, it's something that does control our life. And one point that you had made earlier, and I just want to make sure that your viewers catch that, is that when it comes, now I forgot what I was going to say. What did you say that was so good? It was something about, like your comment about how just this one comment that's an error had messed up your client's ability to get mortgage financing. And I don't think consumers understand how fickle the underwriters can be. That one late payment, that one account, that one error, even if you're not seeing it, it's extremely important for you to work with a professional, a mortgage professional, especially for something such so important, is to make sure that they're going through the report, or that you work with a professional that knows what's going on there and can catch those errors. Because if not, then it's going to cost you a lot of headache and time, as we had mentioned earlier.
Well, back in the day, and I can't believe I just used that phrase, but
your mom's really proud.
Right? So we would be able to look at the credit bureau, just look at the score. You wouldn't even need to look through the whole thing. Just say, okay, oh, we're over 680, we're golden. Now we can't do that. We have to go through every line, every trade, like, with all the changes to the credit bureau and how Equifax is reporting. We have to really truly look at every line. And sometimes for some clients, if they have a thick credit report, we're talking about 4 pages of a credit bureau.
A very condensed hieroglyphics
Ah,
to interpret. Yeah, and yeah, a lot of mortgage professionals don't do that, and it's too late, or they just kind of say, sorry, you're declined, and move on. But a lot of times there are ways to get it corrected, work around it, or maybe it's not necessarily right now, but in a couple months, you
yeah.
are good to go. So one of my messages to Canadians in general is essentially, listen, if you're declined, it's just a snapshot in time. So it's not a label that you got to carry around with you forever. Even if you've been through a bankruptcy or some kind of debt program, within a couple of years, if you reestablish properly, you can get back to best rates and best mortgage terms. And so that's something where it gives people a lot of hope, which is important to keep them moving in the right direction.
Correct. And that's where, like, say you are going through that bankruptcy or consumer proposal, you may not be ready. Well, you won't be ready to be home financing right away, but let's get a plan in place. Let's talk about what you need to do so that when you're within that 1 or 2 years discharge of your consumer proposal, or you're the bankruptcy, you meet all that criteria, you can pull the trigger. So it's just, I think that's a step that a lot of people miss, because again, right now the lenders are so, and to use your word, fickle on what they want to see for that reestablished credit, and what they want to see for trade lines, and what kind of trade lines. Like, so that secured Capital One card for $500 isn't enough,
Right.
right? So it's,
Especially if you get it during the proposal or bankruptcy, and a lot of these rules don't make sense. Like, they're not common sense. It's something where yeah, you might be able to wrap your head around it once it's explained from the bank's perspective. But even then, a lot of them, like we were just mentioning, if you get a credit card during the consumer proposal or before the bankruptcy or debt program, that's
just
great. It will improve your credit, and it is good to have. But the lenders are looking for reestablished credit, and that they only consider once you have completed the debt program. So
Yeah.
just waiting for the score to go up, which is what most people do, is just, okay, I'll just wait until my score is higher. But unfortunately, there's things that you need to be doing now in order to get approved in a year or 2 years, or get back on there. And it's very unfortunate. And one of the saddest reasons, and the reason why I went from the mortgage side to the credit side, is I just got tired of people coming to me and they had the down payment, they had the job, and they had everything else, except for they just weren't explained this 1 or 2 points that, if they would have been explained that a couple of years ago, would be best rates and best terms. But because they didn't know, now they're getting charged higher interest rates, or declined, or just beat up by the credit game. And it's just not necessary if they knew what they were doing.
Yeah. Oh, it's in it. And I totally agree and sympathize with you there, right? The amount of people that do that. So the long story short of it is, if you're declined, don't despair.
That's right.
It's not an end. It's just, we need the barriers. I always tell my clients, we just have barriers we need to overcome.
Right.
And your willingness to work through that is really the biggest way to get through it, right? If you do what we say the lenders want to see, then we'll have a path forward.
Right.
So no, do you have anything else that we haven't talked about that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, there's so much.
I know we could be on the call for over an hour.
Yeah, I guess one thing that I'm trying to do is, because there's so much and so many different scenarios, I've actually roped my wife into doing a YouTube channel / podcast that I do with her a couple times a month. And it's been really fun, one, because it's my wife, and she likes to make fun of me, and that's always fun. But another thing is, she's not from the financial industry whatsoever. And so she has this great perspective, and she'll stop me midstream when I'm getting too boring or getting too technical. And that's been a lot of fun. And that's just a free YouTube channel podcast. So if you are in a situation where you are wanting to know more about credit, and you don't like reading or whatever, then there's the YouTube channel there. And it's good just to understand, because there's thousands of nuances with credit that you probably never would even think of asking or knowing, but knowing that ahead of time is really fun, and can help a lot of people. So
Awesome.
that's available. Yeah.
I'll I didn't get the chance to tag your page when I did the description, so I'll go back in and
Sure.
I'll tag afterwards. I'll either put it in the comments or I'll try and change it in the description. But besides what we've talked about now, what's your biggest tip for consumers for credit?
I think one of the most powerful ones that doesn't necessarily make too much sense to consumers is probably the balance versus the limit. So it's something where a lot of people get credit cards, they have a limit, let's say $1,000 or a couple $1,000s, and they think that that is essentially what they can spend. And you can, under the contract, you can definitely spend that amount. But it's kind of like the banks are doing this marshmallow experience of patience or control. And they give us these credit cards, and then they watch to see how we use them. And one of their criteria that dramatically affects the score is if your balance is ever caught over half of the limit. So even if you pay it off in full each month, that's great because you don't pay the interest. But what it could be doing is if you're getting caught over the halfway mark throughout the month, then your score is going to drop, and it can be dramatic as well. So you could lose 20, 30 points. So if you're looking at your online or Credit Karma or Borrowell, whatever service you use to check your credit, and you're seeing it bounce around a lot, it's probably because they're catching your balance high and then low and then high, and it's jumping up and down all over the place. So that's one thing to keep aware of that a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah, that's one thing when I'm looking at credit bureaus, if there's any balances that are showing over the limit, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll, do the coaching as to, okay, you need to pay this down, and then we're going to re-pull your credit in a couple of months once we know that, you're well below the limit and the statement has registered below the limit.
Right.
And then we'll be in a better position if it's affecting your credit bureau, like if it's negatively affecting to where we, may not be able to get the extended ratios or best rates. So yeah, that's a huge, huge thing. But the good thing about it is it can be a simple fix too.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the easier ones that we don't need to use you for.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. I think the only other thing that I wanted to say was that, how you were saying if you check your Borrowell or your Credit Karma, even going onto your own TransUnion and your own Equifax, what consumers see is different than what we see, which is my biggest bone of contention within the industry. It's been my biggest pet peeve, I think, since I started. And it's confusing for clients to understand that what you and I see is what is different than what they see. So that's just one thing that I love to remind everybody as well.
Yeah, and it's important if you are looking for mortgage financing, not to be afraid to go and talk to a broker. There's a lot of fear out there about having your credit pulled, like it's the end of the world. It's the lowest negative effect to the score. You're only losing a couple points, but the value is very important because that score that you're seeing can be 100 points different than what the banks are using, either plus or minus. So you might think you have great credit and you're getting declined, or you might think you have terrible credit and your score is much higher and you're getting approved. So don't let the credit stop you from talking to a broker, and don't hesitate getting an inquiry on your credit report. I mean, don't go crazy, of course. Don't go and apply everywhere. But if you're doing a serious search on mortgages, then talk to a broker, get that checked first, because then they'll be able to provide that game plan, and maybe it is 3 months to get your credit score up. But if you've gone on in early enough, then you can get that steps before, and then it doesn't delay your house purchase at all.
Exactly. And I think it was in your book that I read that when you're shopping for vehicles,
Yes.
sometimes they'll pull your credit bureau even with your driver's license, and
Yes.
so that when you're out on the test drive, that they can come back and they can work a deal while you're on the test drive, like they can
Exactly.
put you
Yeah.
through. So
And a lot of times the online dealerships now, they'll do it even though like they get your consent without you really knowing. And as soon as you put in that information, they're pulling your credit multiple times. So brokers, mortgage professionals, much easier to deal with. But yeah, vehicle financing, you do need to be cautious, because that can lower your score and get you into issues. Yeah.
So our last here, we'll leave this as the last tip for our video.
Yeah.
If you're buying a vehicle, you do it after you take possession.
That's right. Or at least talk to your broker first, because it could be the you get the new shiny car, but you don't have a garage to park it in, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Well, I think that's all like we said, we could go on for hours about this, but I don't want to bore everybody and make them miss the jewels within our conversations. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to Richard or to myself. Again, I will update it so we've got contact information in the video. His book is huge. It's a huge helper. I've actually been certified with Equifax as I think they call it credit expert now as well. So there's an actual course that I had to take to get that designation, which I did. We're all here for you. We're here to make your home ownership goals a reality, and to make sure that your mortgage matches all your financial goals, not just your mortgage goals, because we got to work together with everything. So thanks so much, everybody. I now need to find where the stop button is again for the Facebook Live.
I'll
And
just wave. I'll distract him while you find the button.
have a fabulous day, everybody.